This time on Militaria at the museum, we'll check out an aircraft named after a type of hunting dog that excelled in locating its targets. Next, we'll look at the similarities and differences between two bolt-action rifles that each experienced vastly different levels of success. Lastly, we'll see a peculiar wooden door that is believed to be from an early prison cell. Beyond museum exhibits lies a hidden realm of archived artifacts that hold the keys to unlocking intriguing stories from the past. Come along as I meet with experts at the Army, Naval, and Aviation museums, where I've been granted special access to pull back the curtains and reveal the secrets of their militaria. My name is Sandy Hiltz, and all my life I've been captivated by military history. Now, I have the rare opportunity to explore a collection of fascinating military artifacts on Militaria at the museum. At the Aviation Museum, I'm meeting with President Mark People to learn about the L-19 Bird Dog. During the Korean and Vietnam Wars, the Bird Dog was feared by the enemy because it was a harbinger of an impending assault. With its nearly 360-degree visibility, it was notorious for locating enemy positions and relaying them to nearby attack aircraft. So Mark, this is the Cessna L-19. Tell me, why is this piece in the collection, and what sort of role does it have in Canadian aviation history?
We see the use of the aircraft in the Canadian Army as being fairly extensive from really the Second World War right on through. And the L-19 Bird Dog was used in the 50s, 60s, and up in almost to the 70s as an aircraft to spot, to look for artillery hits, and to liaise with the ground army in that. It was very slow, it could loiter around, and the L-19 basically looks like a souped-up Cessna. The Cessna aircraft company is sort of synonymous with light planes. The average person says, oh, I'm going for a flight in a small light plane. Well, invariably, it's going to be a Cessna of some sort. Basically, with the Bird Dog and the L-19, it's a bigger version of those smaller Cessnas with a bit more increased fuel and a bit more wingspan and a larger version.
Mark, when we look at this plane, it looks like it was sort of purely for reconnaissance. Could any weapons be attached to this plane at all?
Yes, you could. On the wings, you could attach hardpoints, you could attach rockets, you could attach light bombs, you could attach flares, all different kinds of small weaponry, obviously nothing too heavy, but enough to be a nuisance.
That's quite an image, a Cessna coming towards you with some missiles strapped to the wing. That's really quite a thought.
I don't think it'd be quite a missile, but it certainly would be a rocket anyway. You could fire it at them, yes.
Mark, knowing that this plane's quite extensive wartime service, what sort of impact would it have had in those conflicts, Vietnam and Korea?
It would have a significant impact because, again, technology is changing. And to have an airplane loitering around, they had a very high-powered radio. They could talk to the ground. They could talk back to any sort of location they needed to get to. And once it was sort of up in the air, it was a great eyes in the sky, basically.
So this did have a very important role in the war effort.
Yeah, particularly for the U.S. And they were providing a key component for the Canadian Army and having eyes in the sky and being forward control. Initially, the Bird Dogs were used in Korea and then more success in Vietnam. They were very useful in Vietnam, and that was really where they really earned their spurs.
Now, I would think that when the enemy saw this coming, they would sort of be a little intimidated because it would sort of be foreshadowing that there was something on the way, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be, and I think that's any time that any force, even in the Second World War, when they saw the small planes up loitering in the sky, they knew that it was going to bring something down on them, be it whatever it was, whatever force was going to happen. So yeah, everyone tried to take shots at them, but it's kind of hard to hit that slow, slightly moving target. It's one of those moments where if you're using it correctly, they wouldn't necessarily see that Bird Dog. It would be low enough, or it would be not too loud and it wasn't loitering too long.
So were many of these shot down?
A number were, but in relative sense, they're harder to hit because they're smaller and they're sort of, circling and then coming back.
Of course, this is the Cessna L19, but it's really better known as the Bird Dog. Where is that name coming from, Mark?
Well, it's coming from, I guess, using hunting dogs, and I guess using the hunting dogs to go out and point where the birds actually had fallen and retrieving the birds. So I think that's someone's inspired when they saw that. Well, that's what we'll call it. We'll call that the Bird Dog. Like all aircraft, they tend to get nicknames after a while, either by crew or pilots, so there become some sort of following behind them. But with the L19, obviously they use the term bird dog as it related to looking for something. You have a dog that would hunt birds, it would point, it would find those where those birds were.
So Mark, we talked about how Army aircraft are underrepresented in many museum collections. How did this bird dog end up with you, Mark?
This one came by a technical training school out of Moncton, New Brunswick, and it had been used as a training after service with the Canadian Army. It was deemed surplus and used as a training aid in a school, an aeronautical school. A crew here decided they were going to restore it, and they restored it, repainted it, applied the markings, and also added the detail that we see today on the airframe. A lot of work went into this exhibit, and it represents an underrepresented history of the Canadian Army Aviation section.
Mark, did airplanes like these find a use after they were retired by the military?
Well, like ours became a training aircraft, but also, interesting enough, they're still flying L-19 bird dogs with the Canadian cadets. So the Canadian Air Cadets are actually use them to tow gliders at various locations across Canada. Obviously, they've improved the propeller design and they've improved the engine a little bit, but they're still working their service in the summers, hauling air cadets up into the sky so they can get air experience in gliders, and they're tow planes. There's actually, again, longer service pulling cadets up in the sky than actually operating in the Army.
Are there aircraft like this being produced today?
Well, I mean, not the same design. It looks very similar. For the average person, they look at it and say, oh, well, that's a Cessna, whatever else it is, because again, that's what everyone looks at and sees, like a Cessna 172. So, yeah, I mean, in sort of the generations, yes, they're still using it, and they're still using that sort of basic design, even today.
Mark, thank you for talking about this with me today. It's been an interesting opportunity to look at the usage of aircraft in the Canadian Army's different involvements.
And it's a utility role that most people don't understand, but again, it's represented in the collection a Cessna-built aircraft, and everyone knows what a Cessna is.
Absolutely. Up next at the Army Museum, I'll compare the formidable British-made Lee Enfield rifle with its less successful counterpart, the Canadian-made Ross rifle. Today at the Army Museum, Kevin Robbins is going to give me a closer look at the Lee Enfield and the Ross bolt-action rifles. Two weapons of the First World War which would become infamous for very different reasons.
This is the 1907 Lee Enfield rifle, and it replaces the Lee Metford rifle. The new sort of trend, the new element of battlefield small arms is a bolt-action magazine-fed rifle. So from the time of the Boer War up into the end of the Second World War, there are more than 17 million Lee Enfield rifles produced.
Wow.
Yeah, and they're issued all over the world. The one that we're looking at here, the 1907 pattern, also known as the SMLE, or the Short Magazine Lee Enfield Rifle. This would have a 10-round magazine. A skilled marksman can just rattle through those in no time. You can hear accounts of German troops in 1914 when they're facing the British Expeditionary Force in the Low Countries. It almost would sound like automatic fire because they could fire them off that quick. The Ross rifle comes out of the Lee Metford Association. The Ross rifle was adopted by the Canadian militia prior to Canada's entry into the First World War. This was an effort to produce a Canadian rifle for the Canadian nation. So there was a certain sense of national pride initially with this.
Kevin, would you mind demonstrating the different bolt actions on each of these rifles?
Okay, sure. The Ross rifle, in all its configurations, has a straight pullback bolt. And again, it's got a 5-round magazine fed on a clip as well. So it can go up. So again, you can see this back and forth.
Right.
When it's open like that, back here as well, a lot of dirt, a lot of fouling, okay? You can pop 5 rounds off pretty quick with that. But the rifle, although highly accurate, it just was not designed to hold up to the conditions of the First World War on the Western Front. Now, this is the 1907 Mark III Lee Enfield, short magazine Lee Enfield rifle, so it's sometimes called an SMLE. So this has got a pullback, okay? This has, and again, the side bolt. So this can very quickly be maneuvered back and forth. This has a 10-round magazine, which literally doubles the firing function of this weapon, okay? It's got a nice elevated sight back here. So again, good sturdy walnut. And for in the trenches, if you'll notice, it's a bit shorter as well. So if you're moving through the trench lines, it makes less of an impression or an outline with someone if you got your rifle on your shoulder. So you have a 10-round magazine as opposed to 5. The Enfield rifle, you can shoot more rounds. The action on it is, as you've seen, it's very true in terms of its dependability. It's easily cleaned if it becomes dirty in the field. And again, it's very accurate. So it's just like a much better rifle all around for the conditions that troops are going to have to contend with in the field during the First World War in the trenches.
And you can see how much less exposed it is to dirt and other debris, which would make it far less predisposed to jamming.
Exactly, yeah.
Kevin, the Lee Enfield is obviously a very well-liked rifle. Why is it that Canada didn't go into the First World War with the Lee Enfield and rather did with the Ross?
In the wake of the war, the Canadian government's having trouble getting regular supplies of Lee Enfield weapons. So they won't license anyone in Canada to make any Enfield weapons. The head of the Canadian militia, Sir Sam Hughes, is looking very much for a Canadian weapon. So he has an association with Sir Charles Ross of Scotland. So with this, the two of them get together and will bring this into play for Canada. The Ross has a straight pullback cocking mechanism. So this is not an invention of Sir Charles Ross. He is basically borrowing from a weapon called the Mannlicher. The Mannlicher rifle has that straight pull, goes back to 1895. So this isn't like something Sir Charles Ross adopted. A lot of people like the straight back pull, but again, when they go overseas with the Mark II, the rifle's too long. It's very awkward moving around trench lines. It fouls, it jams. And again, this is the whole point of these bolt-action rifles, is the rapid aspect of fire that you could put down. You could read about these accounts after the Second Battle of Ypres in 1915 of Canadian soldiers literally having to use like the handles of shovels or their boots to unjam a rifle.
Really?
Oh yeah.
When they jammed, they really jammed.
They really jam. And they overheat too. Very susceptible to jamming, dirt, fouling. So overall, a great rifle on the range, just not as dependable in the hands of a sniper in a static post who's just watching. He's keeping his weapon clean. He's not interested in rapid fire, but highly accurate sort of fire. So these weapons will stay on in Canadian sort of battalions all through the First World War with sniper sections. And again, you'll see the Ross rifle often used as well in World War II for Home Guard units.
Kevin, we obviously know that at one point the Canadian Army was using the Lee Enfield. When did they move back into that?
The big turning point again is when the Canadian Corps is training to go to the Valley of the Somme. where they'll relieve the Australian New Zealand Corps, the Anzacs. You're sending people to the Somme. You need a standardized, dependable weapon. So over the course of the spring, and again completed by June of 1915, the Ross rifle is taken out and the Lee Enfield becomes the standard weapon. They want a much more dependable rifle given what's at stake vis-a-vis people's lives. All the Commonwealth armies by 1916 are using this rifle. You have a whole new sort of era within the Canadian Army adopting this rifle. My grandfather hated guns after the war, but he always had a certain grudging admiration for these things. He said you could drop this in a shell hole, be covered in water and dirt. You could take it out, dry it off, clean the breech. It was ready to go.
Really?
Oh yeah, very dependable. A hardy rifle.
Kevin, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to see these rifles. It's been interesting to be able to see them side by side and to better understand why Canada made the move from the Lee Enfield to the Ross and then back to the Lee Enfield in the end to go off to the First World War.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's a remarkable story, really.
No, it certainly is. After the break, I'll be at the Naval Museum to examine a mysterious wooden cell door that was found at the Halifax Dockyard and try to determine the building and era from which it came. Today at the Naval Museum, Lisa McNiven has a wooden cell door that she'd like us to explore together. She knows that it was found at the Halifax Dockyard, but cannot say for certain the building from which it came, nor the type of cell for which it was used. I'm hoping the two of us can answer some of those questions today. Lisa, I hear you have sort of a mysterious door that you believe is from the dockyard here.
I do. It may be a door to a jail cell. I'm not too sure. I'd love to have your opinion on it.
Oh, I'd love to take a look. Just in here, is it?
Yeah, let's go see.
So this is the cell door, Lisa.
Yes. It's intriguing, isn't it? Where did this come from? The cell door that we have in our collection has always proved to be a mystery to me. There are so many layers involved that I'm having a hard time interpreting it.
You know, if we take a look at it, it doesn't lend a lot of clues, really. And it's sort of interesting, you know, when you look to date something like this, you look often at the shape of the bolts and whether they're handmade and so on. And obviously the earlier shape is that four-sided bolt, but then you get into these six-sided bolts here, which doesn't really lend us a lot of help in trying to nail down a date on this, does it?
No, it's a mix of many different eras, I think.
Do we know where or how this made its way to the museum, at least?
It's been in dockyard storage for quite a few years, and it weighs at least 200 pounds, if not more.
Really?
So it hasn't had a long commute in my mind.
Right. And it is sort of interesting, though. I mean, though the dockyard had cells as well, I mean, there was a prison just down the street from here, a Rockhead prison. Yeah.
Yeah, there are many possibilities.
Right. But this is the only one that you know of like this.
This is the one and only.
It's in quite good shape. And interestingly, the inside of the door is in quite good shape as well. So it doesn't seem as if anyone's been making too hard a try getting out, does it?
Exactly. Maybe it's more for security than anything.
Oh, and that's a possibility as well. Yeah. It almost makes one wonder if it could have been used to secure a room rather than to secure someone inside the room.
Wartime?
Exactly. And what partially makes me think that is the fact that there isn't, now this could be an adaptation, but there is no cover for this that could be slid over, which you would often see on a door that was meant to keep someone in.
Right.
Being as it's here at the base, that it could have been munitions storage or anything like that.
Really?
Further to the age conversation, Lisa, I think it's particularly interesting to note the fact that there really aren't very many layers back there, as you might expect on a door, should it be, say, 1900 or earlier. But what really makes me think that this door is later than, sort of the early days of the dockyard here in Halifax is this detail here, and see how limited the wear is in that location. Lisa, that's my 2 cents as to the age and possible history of the door. Do you have any sort of leading theories on it?
You can just see an outline of 16.
Right.
So 16 of what?
And we don't know what the reference to 16 is
Nope.
there? Oh, that's rather unfortunate,
Nope.
isn't
Is
it?
it 1 of 16 or 16 onward? I don't know.
Was there an official prison building, or was it sort of just the basement of one of the other buildings that was here?
Well, from the records that I'm accessing right now, I'm referring to 1945 inventory list of buildings that were in the dockyard. And there was one building down in the dockyard that had a listing of 40 cells. So is this 16 of 40? I don't know.
So there were quite a number of cells here. Right.
I think it might be original to the dockyard, but I've done some research and I have some theories. Do you want to go to the 2nd floor and check it out?
Oh, that would be great, and maybe you'll prove me wrong.
Let's go see. So I kind of took a chronological approach of my earliest photos. I have the dockyard and a reference to a door or a prison or restraint of some sort. So these photos are from 1890, and the back of it indicates that is Residence Police Sergeant Dockyard.
Right.
So the interesting aspect of these photos is that the cells were incorporated into the police sergeant's house towards the end, the back end of the building. And the house is literally built into the side of the main wall.
Oh, that's quite something, yes.
So my next photo indicates another residence, and the designation is police quarters. I can still see a corner of the original dockyard wall.
Ah,
So there's a
correct.
clue to where we can find its location.
Right. So that's sort of your guide for all these photos.
If I
is
can
it is
find the
location.
dockyard wall, I'm happy. I know where
Right.
I am.
Right.
Pictures of police commissioners. In the old commissioner house, actually, I would say this is turn of the century.
Right. And these are police commissioners of Halifax, or are these people
Of
that would have...
dockyard,
Really? So they had quite a number of police commissioners in the dockyard at
which
the time.
wonders why such a large staff.
Yes.
What was the issue?
Yeah, that's
And is that why we have dockyard jail door number 16?
right.
And these are German prisoners.
Hmm.
Once again, dockyard door being used at Halifax Citadel. My theory is that the dockyard door hasn't moved very far.
Right.
There's our naval reference. German naval officers, World War I.
Hmm.
Finally, my favorite photo in the collection. Cell block staff, April 23rd, 1944. And I love the reference. You can just see the armband on this gentleman, and its designation is NP, armband, Naval Police.
Oh, look at that.
There's an inventory taken of all RCN buildings and lands in the Halifax area. And page 302 indicates that there were 40 cells, building 40, guardhouse, and cell block. The door represents a long-standing history of service and protection in the dockyard, whether it was for border or whether it was for incarceration. It was still used for the protection and the services of the RCN and RCNBR sailors that were serving the dockyard during World War II.
Lisa, thank you for taking me through these various photos and documents. I think that certain aspects of what we've looked at has a good likelihood of having come from here at the dockyard. Absolutely. Having special access to go beyond museum exhibits reveals some of history's best-kept secrets and most interesting stories. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of military artifacts on another episode of Militaria at the museum.